Recording.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So in the last class, we were studying the 29th verse, the 29th sloka of the second chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, where we found that Bhagavan is describing the self as Ascharya, the wonder. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam, Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah, Ascharyavat chainyam anyas srinoti, Srutvapyenang Veda Nachaiva Kaschit. That some look upon the self as wonder, some speak of it as wonder, some hear of it as wonder, still others, though hearing, do not understand it at all. So, as we were indicating, that anything which is rare, it is suddenly seen, suddenly perceived, that we consider as Ascharya. So the self, we as such, it's not a matter of perception to the common mankind, to the common humankind. It's a few fortunate ones through their spiritual realization comes to have an inkling of it. It is a something without which the existence itself is not possible, but being the core of our being, it is not perceptible. And when we just get an inkling of it in the form of realization, we are amazed, we are bound to be amazed in wonder. As the word, and we indicating that the word Ascharya means something rare, which very nicely has been described in the Kathopanishad. So there is a nice mantra in Kathopanishad, the seventh mantra of the second chapter of the first part of Kathopanishad. Sravanayapi bahubhir yanalabhya, srinvantopi bahavo yang na vidyu, ascharyo vakta kushalosya labdha, ascharyo gyata kushalanu shishtaha. So the self is not even been heard of by many. It's not available for hearing to many. Many are not interested about it at all. They never even have heard of it. That's what Sravanaya pi vahuvi yana labhya. Srinvantopi vahavu yana vidyu. And those who have heard, a very few of them can really even intellectually understand, intellectually grasp what it has been spoken of as. So just the rarity speaks of its wonder. So the most of the people haven't heard. Those who have heard, they also cannot understand it in its true context. So ascharya vakta kushalasya labdha. So it's a very rare indeed that where we find a realized soul, ascharya vakta, he's ascharya because he's a wonder, because he's something rare. Kushalasya labdha. And that also to him, someone has approached with a real yearning, who really wants to realize the self. There is no other motivation. Such combination can result in again the realization. the Shishya, can realize the self only when he has approached that Ascharya Vakta, the one who is the wonder indeed to have realized the spiritual dimension of our existence in his life. And he has become Jivan Mukta. He is a free soul while living. So when such happens, then it is really again a wonder. Wonder is he who realizes the self being instructed by an adept, by an realized soul. That is Ascharya Vakta Kushalasya Labdha Ascharya Gyata Kushalanu. So that's what we saw in the last class, being instructed to Arjuna by Krishna. And Krishna, for the time being, concludes the topic of indestructibility of the self in the next verse. So what's the verse? Let's go to the verse and we will continue our discussion on it. Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. So, O Arjuna, so this Bharata is the Arjuna. So, Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. In this body, the soul dwells within the body. He is the Dehi. The one who resides in the Deha, in the body, is the Dehi. The soul that dwells within the body. Know it for certain. After discussing, he is saying that it can never be slain. It is avadhyo, that which cannot be slain. Nityam, never. It's not that sometimes in war I have won, at other times I may lose, I may be killed. So it's nitya, refers to the term that it never can be killed. Nityam avadhyoyam. So tasmat sarvani bhutani natva shochitum arhasi. So you should not mourn for anyone in this world, in this existence, because this coming and going is just of the body. The self never dies. This is the realization which gives tremendous strength. What's the strength like? Very nicely it has been spoken of again in the Kathopanishad. There's a very nice mantra in Kathopanishad. It's a very poetic. What it says, Yasya brahmacha kshatramcha ubhe bhavata odana mrityur yasya upasechana ka itha veda yatrasaha. So yasya brahmacha kshatramcha ubhe bhavata odana. Odana means food. The one who has realized the self, who is established in the self, for him, the Brahmin and the Kshatriyas are like food. And mrityur yasya upasechana. And in that food, death is the condiment. You add the spice. What it is actually speaking of, the one who has realized the self, he has gone beyond the dictums of the priestcrafts, the church. He has gone beyond the dictum of the church. Even the church cannot bind him. By church, we do not mean a religious body of a particular religious organization. Church means of any denomination, the religious organization, the faith which is ruling over the faith of the mass. In that sense, we use the word church. So any church, the Brahmin speaks of the church, the Brahmin who dictates the do's and don'ts to the society as per the religious life is concerned. Kshatriya, he is also there to dictate us the do's and don'ts in the form of all the laws which governs the land. So it is the Brahmin and the Kshatriya, the church and the government. That used to be even to a certain extent. Now, of course, the government is almost all powerful. The church has lost its hold to a great extent. But in the olden society, These were the two bodies which had a hold on the entire society. And all were bound to follow the dictums that has been imposed by them, the government and the church. So what was dharma then? The dharma means dharayate iti dharma. I knew very well that if I cannot restrict my life within those dictums which has been dictated by the church and by the government, I will be in danger. My life will be in peril. I cannot have a very peaceful, integrated life. So those are the laws which is to hold me, integrate me. So in that sense, the dharma means that which holds, that which binds us. So those were the things which binds us. But the one who has gone beyond the realization, throughout the history of religion, you will find that the one who has gone beyond has gone to the realization, has gone established in the self, nothing can hold them back. They just speak the truth, what they have realized, without bothering what the society has to say about them. Whether they're censoring them, whether they're going to persecute them, they're not afraid at all. They speak boldly about the self because they have gone beyond the laws. So that's how you will find all the religions, at the head of which there is a prophet, or there is a seer, there's a mystic, a saint, who has formed as if a great force for a religious movement to start, to ensure. You will find he is a man of realization. And he has gone beyond the dictums of the church, of the government. He just speaks what's the truth without fearing the church or the government. And then what happens? That the church and the government is bound to rebel back, is just going to try to censor him, try to stop him from what he's preaching. Go just relate to any of the religious tradition, you will find. They're trying to stop him. But he feels that it is not to challenge the church, not to challenge the government. He is the savior to save the humankind. He knows this is the knowledge which has to be delivered. And then all the oppositions become the food. The more they oppose, more his assertion of the self. That becomes the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins becomes the food. On that, the message starts spreading. The more they oppose, the more the message spread, as if that Brahmins and the Kshatriyas have become the food. On that, the message is being nourished. The more the opposition, the more it spreads. Not only that, at last it may entail in the death of the prophet, mrityu. That becomes the condiment, that becomes the pickle, the spice that adds up to the flavor of the food in the form of opposition, which comes from the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. And we find the death actually causes the flourishment of that particular belief or faith. You relate to any of the religious tradition. There's a wonderful story when Alexander was conquering with the idea of conquering the entire world. He was proceeding and he came to India. He was amazed by a fakir, a sage, a saint. When he went, he was just loitering in the forest and he saw that sage. And in the process of conversation, he was really amazed that so much knowledge this person has. Apparently a very simple soul, but full of knowledge. He was so impressed, he told, "You please come with me. I will make you that one of the dignitaries of all this, my administration, the administrative officials." So he declined. Alexander could never believe that why should someone decline, that he is the emperor of the world. How can someone decline to him his request? At last he started threatening him that if you don't come with me, I will kill you. And then we find the saint told, I never thought you were a fool. You're such a big fool. Know it for certain, none can kill me. So this is the assertion. So Swami Vivekananda used to say that sometimes seeing a religiously evolved, spiritually evolved person to be very mild, very feeble, we think that they are not courageous. The courage belongs to the Kshatriya. It can never be to that of a so-called realized soul. Kshatriya can even renounce his life in the battlefield. But we forget that all this realized soul has shown the real strength, that even at the face of death, nothing can take away their conviction. Even if the church feels that what they are speaking is not up to their interest, if the government feels what they are speaking is not up to their interest, they're not bothered. It's not to, again, to challenge them, just to establish the truth which the humankind needs, on which the humankind can find fulfillment. That they preach boldly. Go to the story of the crucifixion of the Jesus, the same thing. Go to the Baha'i movement. Again, you will find the same thing. The Sufi movement. That so many times that we have indicated previously, that al-haq means the truth. But when the Sufi mystics started speaking an-al-haq, that an created all the problem. That's I am the truth. The moment you say that, immediately the church comes, the so-called priests come to impose their restrictions on you. You cannot say that, it is blasphemy. But that's the language of all the mystics, of all the traditions. When they go to the realization, they go to that unitary experience. They speak out. In spite of all the persecutions they have to go through, nothing could stop them. Actually, all those persecutions flared up the faith. You go to the Sikh faith, the same thing happened at the time of Aurangzeb, at the time of the Mughal rule. The more they were oppressed, the more the movement was flaring up. So Brahma and Kshatriya becomes the food and death becomes the condiment. So it's even in our Hindu tradition also we find that there we found that somehow there was a freedom in religion. But yes, after the Muslim invasion, there were a lot of persecutions going on. Even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we will find, he was asked to stop the Nagar Sankirtanam. He actually came out with a full force without fearing about the persecution. Just without thinking of any type of persecution. They were just have your seat. So there was so much of the fear of persecution, but there was no such this fear. The fear factor has gone totally. So that's the thing which we find, which is being indicated in this mantra, that yasya brahma chakshatrancha ubhe bhavata udana mrityur yasya upasechanam ka ittha veda yatrasa. So when you get established in yourself, when you get established in your realization, so please ask them to sit there if the class is going on here. So if so this, the fear of death in no way can restrict them. So that's the idea which we find in this sloka. Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehi sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. So there is no fear. There is no question of being anxious. There's no question of mourning, because you have got established in yourself. Dehi nityam avadhyoyam. The Dehi can never be killed. And that gives us strength, and on which we find that all the religious movements are established, that they become totally fearless. They go above the dharma, the so-called dharma, which speaks of integration within the laws of the government and the church. You have gone beyond that. And then the dharma has a different meaning. What's the meaning of dharma then? Vishishyateti dharma. That there's vishishyata means everything in this world has its own characteristic. Like the water flows. The fluidity is the dharma, the characteristic of water. So the milk is white. The whiteness is the dharma of the milk. So like that, we find that each and everything has its characteristic. So the characteristic of a human being, what's the characteristic of a human being? That human being alone can realize its own self. So no one else can do that. So in that sense, now the dharma, once you can go to that sense of dharma. When you realize yourself, now you transcend the other meaning of dharma. That dharayatiti dharma, that you have transcended. So now vishishyate. As a human being, the capacity to realize the self, that has been established in your life. That has brought the fulfillment. And now you go beyond all the so-called the dictums of the society. So that's the thing which has been indicated in the 30th verse of the second chapter. So now from 32nd to the 37th, these are the slokas. It doesn't need much explanation. Here we will find that Krishna, as one of the most efficient teacher, is trying to convince Arjuna that he has to fight the battle from various perspectives. That maybe the idea of the self doesn't appeal him. Then even from the perspective of swadharma, that he being a kshatriya, for him it is most apt. It is apt to just not be afraid of death, afraid of this war. He has to be firm enough. He has to have that grit, that resolution, that resilience to go through all the hardships which is bound to face because of this war. He has to go through that, and he has, because of his swadharma, being a kshatriya, again taking part in the war is the only thing which is desirable. So from the 32nd to the 37th, these verses indicates that. So let us go through these verses one by one. The 31st verse, what it is saying: Swadharmam api chavekshya na vikampitum arhasi dharmyat hi yudhyat shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Even considering from your own dharma, swadharmam api chavekshya, from the standpoint of your own dharma, you should not waver. Vikampitum arhasi, you should not waver. You should not be vacillating in your decision. Why? Because dharmyat hi yudhyat, dharma yudhya, righteous war, not just war, not for the sake of aggression, for just exploiting others' wealth, others' property. That's of course not desirable. But if it is a dharma yudhya, that the peace has to be resorted, the peace has to be brought back, that some destructive forces is not allowing you to have peace and prosperity. And that's when you have a righteous war. You have the right to again restore the peace. So that's the righteous war. If there's a chance for that righteous war, so there is nothing better than that. So we find that this is the idea of this Swadharma, which has been established in the Bhagavad Gita again and again. That Swadharma, that religion doesn't mean that you have to renounce your day-to-day activities and your responsibilities and resort to a life of a renunciate. Just by following your Swadharma, your responsibilities, that if I am a student, as a student, what's my responsibility? If I am a professional, as a professional, what's my duty? What's my responsibility? If I am a businessman, as a businessman, what's my responsibility? As a politician, whatever role I am playing, in that, what's my responsibility? If I can do it perfectly, and along with that, with proper perspective, with proper orientation, to do the thing is one thing, and to do the thing with proper orientation is another thing. So when you do it with proper orientation, then it becomes a spiritual affair. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, nothing is secular, everything is spiritual. It's how you are doing it. So that's the idea here. That's when you're doing it when you are resorting to Swadharma. From that standpoint also, this battle is something which shouldn't be forsaken. As has been indicated in the 43rd sloka of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that what are the characteristics of a Kshatriya? Shaurya, Teja, Dhriti, Dakshya, Yudhe, Chapi, Apalayanam, Chapya Palayanam, Danam, Ishvara Bhavascha, Kshatran, Karma, Swabhavajam. Shaurya, heroism. He should be full of valor, heroism, that's Teja, strength. Dhriti, he should be resilient. He shouldn't be afraid of the hardships which he is going to face. He should have that grit, that resilience, that speaks of the dhriti. This dakshata, the skill in weaponry, that he should have. Yudhe cha api apalayanam. He should not run away from the battle. There shouldn't be any retreat from the battlefield because of the fear of death. Dhanam, and when there is no war, the country is going through the peace and prosperity. There, as a Kshatriya, you have to look after the welfare of the society. So that speaks of the large-heartedness in the form of dana, all the welfare activities that the government runs. Just see, when the war is there, the government has to send the soldiers for the battle. And when the peace is reigning, then it has to look after the prosperity of the nation. So dana, Ishvara Bhavascha. So he should have that leadership abilities. Ishvara Bhava means the leadership abilities. These are the dharmas of a Kshatriya. So that's why we find when after winning the Kurukshetra war, Yudhishthira was so dejected because all her relatives have been killed and he wanted to renounce the kingdom. And that's what he was expressing to Bhishma. Bhishma, who was about to die, he was in the bed of arrows, and that's the Shanti Parva actually starts there, where Yudhishthira went for advice from Bhishma, who is about to die. And hearing that Yudhishthira wants to renounce, they're very nice. One line in the Shanti Parva is there. Danda evahi Rajendra Kshatra Dharma na mundanam. This danda na munda. What's that? Danda means just the duty of the Kshatriya is danda. That is, exercise the power not to exploit, but to serve people. Danda means the exercising the power to serve his people. So that is the dharma of Kshatriya. Na mundanam, not to shave his head and become an ascetic. So this is the thing which we find here also Krishna is indicating. By following your dharma, you can excel even spiritually if your orientation is perfect. That why you are resorting to this war. Why this you have to resort to this war. And the next sloka speaks that it's not that you are the one who are the aggressor. You are now you have to defend yourself because someone is going to exploit you. So now this war has came as a opportunity to practice religion. This war is an opportunity to practice religion, to practice righteousness. So what's that 32nd sloka is speaking? Yadrichaya chopapannam swarga dwaram apavritam sukhina kshatriya partha labhante yuddham idrisham. That happy indeed are the Kshatriyas. Yadrichaya cha upapannam. Because it came by itself. It's not that you are the one who is interested in the war. It came by itself. The situation was such that there was going to be some exploitation, and it is you who have to take part in the righteous war to stop any form of exploitation. Yadrichaya cha upapannam. This type of war opens up the doors to the heaven. Swarga dwaram apavritam. Sukhina kshatriya partha. Labhante yuddham idrisham. So he becomes sukhi, he's happy. Why? Even if it entails in your death, but the idea that even after the death, that we transmigrate, if you have taken part in a righteous war, and that has caused your death, it will lead to swarga, it will lead to a higher evolved life. What it actually speaking of? In our day-to-day life, you know that wherever there's a question of attenuation of our ego, attenuation of our selfishness, reduction of our selfishness, removal of our selfishness, erasing of our selfishness, that speaks of our evolution. In the entire life, that just when a small child is having some pocket money, it immediately will be thinking of how to use it for all the things it wants. The same child, when he has become the father, the same money he can use for himself. But the thought comes, the responsibility is there. I have so many dependables. It's not only for me. So if I have to go to some shop, that's just when I'm passing from my school, I'm returning to my, I'm coming back home, I see the McDonald's, the child will just go directly and have whatever they have in their pocket. But the father, it's not that the father doesn't feel like going, he also feels. But the first thought which will come to his mind, the picture will come to his mind. It's his children, it's the other family members. So what he will do, he has to renounce his own desire. He will go to the same shop, he will buy the things, not to grab it there itself, he will bring it at home. He will share it with all. So the question of Tyaga and Seva comes here. How? With the annihilation of the self. The more we can annihilate ourselves, think of others, the more we are evolved. And that speaks of the entire evolution. That's why there's an idea of yajna in the Bhagavad Gita. When we read the word yajna in the Gita and we translate it is the Homa, we do a big mistake. Yes, in a limited sense, the Homa also means same. That why we used to do Homa? That we offer oblations with the idea that the rain, there is a God, personified God who gives us rain, who gives us wind. If the wind is too strong, my cultivation, my agriculture will be destroyed. If there's too much rain or there's scarcity of rain, I won't get crops. So they should be appeased. How I can appease? So this was the idea that if I pour some oblations in the fire, we find that as a smoke, it moves up. So this was the visualization that fire is the mouth of the devas. The gods are residing up with this, with the fire, that as in the form of the smoke, all the oblations are taken by all the devas. So you may say, is it correct? Forget about the right and wrong. The idea is of interrelation. That this nature is there. Whether there is some person there or not, let us forget about it. But the idea was there that nature and we are interdependent. It is the rain which gives us the crop. on which I sustain myself. So I have to be in collaboration with the nature. There should be a synergy. I cannot just think of my existence without cooperating the nature. So this is the real idea of yajna, this give and take. So wherever it is followed, this is just the way. I cannot break the law of gravitation. Can I break? I can never. Sometimes we say, a very interesting thing, we say that all these laws are nonsense. It's my freedom. I don't believe in them. I won't follow them. That sometimes we say that it's my freedom. All those do's and don'ts are nonsense. They are such an absolute truth. But there is something called absolute truth. Like Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if I take chili, I'm bound to feel that hot sensation. When a chili is kept in a plate, whether I will take it or not, that is my choice. I cannot. But I will take the chili, but I will not have that hot sensation. Is it going to happen? Never. If I take the chili, I am bound to feel that hot sensation. If I don't take, well and good. So the law are there. Whether I follow them or not, it's my choice. But if I follow the result that I am going to accrue, there cannot be any as such choice in that. It is fixed. If I don't follow, the result is fixed. Just that example which we give again and again. If you say that I don't believe in gravitation and you jump out of a 20-story building, are you going to fly? You're not going to fly. It doesn't matter. So laws can never be broken. In our attempt to break laws, we break ourselves. We can never break laws. If you can break a law, that is not a law. So similarly, the law behind the entire universe is cooperation. It's not competition. And we forgot it. And that's this, you will find that we are in the verge of such climatic change where our existence is at brink. Why? Again, we didn't cooperate it. So this cooperation is the law of nature. If you don't do, if you, for my own selfishness, like a cancer cell, I want to grow more and more. What happens? When the cancer cell grows in the body, at last the person dies, along with that the cancer cell also dies. So the entire society, like that cancerous cell, when they're thinking of their own gratification, they start growing like the cancer cell and become carcinogenic. The society becomes carcinogenic. And that result entails in death. So this is the law, fixed law. You cannot break it. So how come he will say that? Now we'll find that the idea of Swarga, we forget about the so-called whether there is a real heaven or not. It's a question of evolution. That idea behind the idea of Swarga is what? We all want Swarga. What? A life which is much more prosperous. So how is it possible? By following the law of this cooperation, synergy, win-win situation, where I don't give importance to myself. I give importance to others. The stories are so important that sometimes in our school, when I was in school for a long time, so we used to relate this story. That you have all heard this story. It's a very interesting story. That what's the difference between the heaven and hell? A person after dying, his wish was, he was asked, what's your wish? He told that, I want to just have a look at how the heaven is and how the hell is. So he was taken first to the hell. And what he saw was there was a huge feast going on. There was a huge dining table, long dining table. On both the sides, the people were sitting. It's a huge arrangement. There was a buffet. This huge arrangement of foods were there. Lots of delicacies were there. But there was one limitation. What's the limitation? The hands were actually all fixed by some. It was tied with some stick. It was straightened. So you cannot bend the hand. There was some props which was fixed to your hand and it was tied. So now they were trying their best to eat the food. With their hand, straightened hand, you can never bring your hand near your mouth. So however they were trying, they couldn't eat the food in spite of the fact that so much food was there. And it was really something which is tormenting, that you have everything, but you cannot enjoy. And this man was now taken to the heaven. And there he saw the same scenario, this dining table with all the foods kept. And there were people sitting on both the sides. And then there also we find the same limitation, the same abundance and same limitation. There also the hands were all straightened and tied. But here he saw a wonderful thing. The one who is sitting on this side of the table is picking up the food and feeding the one who is on the other side, opposite side of the table. And the one who is sitting on the other side, he's feeding the one who's in this side of the table. So this speaks of win-win situation. I don't compete with you so that I win, you lose. You also win, I also win. So this is the thing which speaks of synergy, where I am not thinking of myself. I'm thinking of the collective goodness. And that speaks of Swarga. Swarga is not a place which is different from our place. Where we all cooperate, that becomes Swarga. Where we are not cooperating, we're just thinking of ourselves, that becomes the hell. So here they are saying that where there is a dharma yuddha, you are going to take part in a battle for the righteous reason. You have an ideal behind it. That will open up the Swarga for you. Why? Because you are relinquishing yourself. You know, when you will see that throughout the world, the mothers are like how? The God has implanted that tremendous love in the mother. Mothers are almost helpless. If the child is in danger, they are ready even to give their life for the sake of the children. They will give their life. Not only human beings, any creature you see. There in National Geographic, there are so many videos where you will find even the other animals are giving away their life for the small ones. So when your ideal becomes like your child, that I stand up for an ideal, it has become like my child. You are ready to give your life for that ideal. You are not even bothered about yourself. What it speaks of? Relinquishing of the selfishness, relinquishing of the ego. And that speaks of the evolution. And that speaks of the Swarga Dwara opening up. Just see, these slokas are, if you just take it in a very literal sense, it may not mean much. But actually, this all has a spiritual implication. So, yadrichaya cha upapannam sarga dwara apavritam sukhina kshatriya partha labhante yuddham idrisham. And the next sloka just says the contrary. In contrary, that evil results will fall if you run away from a righteous war. Atha chetvam imam dharmam sangramam na karishyasi tatah swadharma kirtincha hitva papam avapsyasi. Atha chet tu imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi. And if, however, you refuse to fight this righteous war, atha chet tu imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi, you refuse to take part such in righteous war, what happens? Tata swadharma kirtincha. So by abandoning your own dharma and your own reputation, know it for certain, you will incur sin. In what way we are incurring sin? That just we understood from the previous discussion, that what's punya and what papa? What is this sin and what is piousness? What is holiness? Is there a definition of holiness and sin? In one sentence, Vyasa, in some other part of Mahabharata, very nicely has defined that what is holy and what is unholy, what is pious and what is sin. What is that? Paropakara punyaya papaya parapiranam. That anything that gives me happiness, if I do it for others, that is upakara. By taking food, I feel satiated, I feel happy. And when I find someone else is hungry, I feed him. That is para upakara. Papaya para piranam. And whenever I'm tormenting others in any form, that's hingsa. That is papa. So now The question comes when I am running away from the righteous one. What type of papa it is? I am doing parapira. How? Because very nicely in the Yoga Sutra it has been told that hingsa can be of three forms: krita, karita, anumodita, committed, caused, or approved. So when in the school some fight is going on, I may be the one who is aggressive, that is the committed, I am committing that aggression. Karita, sometimes I find that I don't have sufficient strength, so I somehow instigate a bully to just take revenge on the one on whom I am angry. So I myself cannot do it, so I am causing it, karita. I am using someone else to bully upon the one. So it's krita, karita, anumodita. With someone I have some inimical relation, and I actually, even myself, I am not hurting him, though inside I feel that grudge. Neither I have instigated someone to take revenge on him, also I have not done. But somehow I find that some fight has ensued. And internally I relish, wow, it's good. He should get that good beating. Internally I'm relishing. That is anumodana, anumodita. So that also is hingsa. Very nicely it has been described. So here we find when I am running away from the war, knowing very well the one who are attacking, their only sense is aggression, their only motivation is aggression, their only motivation is to exploit. And I was the one who was there to stop exploitation, and I'm running away. So it is an anumodana. So that way it is papa. It will result in parapira. It will at last result in tormenting the humankind in general, the mass in general. So that way it is papa. So if you're not taking part in a righteous work, know it for certain, it will result in papa. And not only that, people will be speaking ill of you. All your reputation will be gone. The 34th sloka speaks of that. Akirtim chapi bhutani kathaishyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakirtim maranad atirichyate. Akirtim chapi bhutani. The people will speak you as a coward, as a deserter. Kathaishyanti te avyayam. Just they will be saying about you, against you, that you are a coward. You are the deserter. You are the one who have ran away. So they will speak all manners of ill words against you. So, and for a man of reputation, for a respectable person, sambhavitasya chakirti marana, for a man of reputation, such ill reputation is even worse than death. So here this speaks of reputation. You will find in our life, it takes years to build up reputation, and it may just take a moment to just wash off all your reputation, to ruin all your reputation. That's the Warren Buffett, it is his quotation, that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. So if you think about it, you will do things differently. So what happens when the reputation is ruined? You find that everyone is boycotting you. For any action in your life, you won't find that anywhere, in school, college, in my work field, once the reputation is gone, I will find all whom I was thinking my friend, the one who was thinking my well-wisher, they are becoming more and more indifferent. And now you will understand that how that type of scenario becomes something even worse than death. But nowadays, sometimes we say, no, it's not that reputation can be there in spite of the wrong reasons. It can never be there. That previously, that here we find that Arjuna as a warrior is going to lose his reputation. That's what Krishna is saying, that if you run away from the world. But nowadays you will find that all the so-called famous people are famous because of wrong reasons. So how can you say that even by just by doing wrong things, you cannot be a reputed person. So we should always know there's a difference between being famous and being a reputed person. There's a difference. There's a difference between being famous and being a reputed person. Famous. You can, Sanskrit, the slokas are wonderful. They say, in the world, the easiest thing is to become famous. It's the easiest thing. How? There's a very nice Sanskrit sloka, which I won't repeat the sloka, I will just say the meaning. That suppose you want to become famous. Very easy thing you have to do. You just get up on the back of a donkey and just go around the city. Next day, your name will be highlighted in the newspaper. You have done something queer. You have done something queer and immediately you become famous. So nowadays in the social media, you will find it's full of such becoming famous. Do something peculiar, dress in a bit peculiar way, and post your photo, you become famous. So many, you will find that likes and everything is coming. So I myself faced a problem when I was in India, that the freedom, no one has the freedom to ask you how to dress and all. In Ramakrishna Mission, we run so many schools. And now we found that few of our teachers do got influenced by those ideas. And these young teachers, they started wearing all the dress which we never prescribed. And it was a big issue. Suddenly the teachers was coming, people of the teacher with all those dress. And now we had to, of course, intimidate, we have to call them and ask them that why? And the immediate reaction was, you cannot say anything about it. It's our freedom. And then we somehow one day had a meeting with the teachers, all the teachers together, thinking it to be a big crisis. I still remember a senior monk, what the way he dealt the problem was very interesting. He told, it's the same thing he told, that in this world, everyone wants projection. Everyone wants projection. And the easiest way of projection is to do something queer. And that first thing that finds expression is through our dress. You dress in a certain way, people immediately will find you have drawn the attention of so many people. And of course, that to certain extent speaks of becoming more popular. But what happens, why the concept of uniform is there? Just to stop becoming famous. You have the right to project yourself. That you want to project yourself, we don't say that you don't project yourself, you project yourself. But this way, it doesn't help anyone. If you just dress in a bit queer way, the students suddenly notice you and they think you to be like a hero-like figure. In what way it is helping anyone? Does the student really getting benefit out of it? You are here to give them real education, isn't it? So if you're a good teacher, that also is a projection. That also is a big projection, that you can deliver the text in the lessons in such a way that students you're extremely popular among the students because of your capability of teaching. So what we intend to do, let the teachers have a uniform so that you can in no way project in some cheap way. That's also a way of projection, but it's a very cheap way. It doesn't need any type of endeavor. In your life, if you have not studied, a teacher who cannot teach his students, he can also become famous just by wearing a particular type of dress and draw the attention of the students. He can become famous. But in what way it is helping anyone? It's not helping anyone. But if I could have really delivered this class and the lessons in a wonderful way, that would have made me famous. So let the dress be uniform. We all want you project. We never stop you. Project. But project in a way which really serves a purpose. Otherwise, what's the use? Today, if for some reason you lose your job here and you go out for another job as a teacher in some other school, would you think that this dress, the way you dress and the way you became popular is going to give you that job? It's not going to give you. So now you will understand that how that just become famous helps in no way. The real reputation has to be built up. It takes time. And on that builds our destiny. Popularity ultimately harms us. It in no way, so-called cheap popularity helps us. Neither it helps us, nor it helps anyone else. But reputation do help the society. I am building my reputation, but it is because of some good cause that I am giving something to the society, and that's my reputation is building. So just to become famous and to become popular and to be reputed is difference. So when your reputation is harmed, know it for certain, it is harming you. It's really harming you. You may become famous, but it is in no way helping you. So that's the we will understand that the most easiest thing in the world is to become famous, to become popular. But that doesn't entail that you are a respectable person in the society. And once you lose your reputation, then you will find a very interesting thing. That your intentions may be something different, but people will always throw, what you say, that mud on you. The way you have not thought, they will interpret that you have actually thought that way. So here, Arjuna is running away from the war because he found his relatives on the other side. But when he runs away, people will never say that because of his kindness. People will never say that because of his kindness, because of his compassionate heart, he left the battlefield. What they will say? He's a coward. Why it happens? Swami Vivekananda is very interesting. These words, if you really think a little, you will find what a wonderful meaning it has. Swami Vivekananda used to say, that we all have a tendency to see others' faults. We never see the goodness in others. You know why? Very nice reason he's giving. The faults, the so-called weaknesses we have, it is common to all. Somehow it is not finding expression in my life, it is finding expression in others' life, but we have it. It's by default the weakness of all. So easily we can relate. Whenever I see something wrong in others, immediately I can relate because that is in me. He used to give a very nice example. Suppose a lump of gold is lying on this table. A small child, an infant who is crawling on the ground, he doesn't know the value of the gold. The gold is there. Someone comes, just sees no one is looking at him, picks up the gold, hides it and runs away. The child will not react at all because the thief is not in that child. It's not in it that. He doesn't know that something has been stolen. So he doesn't see theft. As the thief is not within him, he doesn't see theft. When I see someone is stealing, the idea of stealing is in me. So it's a simple way to understand. When you see fault in others, know it for certain, the fault is in you. You should repent that still you have those impurities in your mind. That's why you see the other's fault. But I never see others' goodness. In life, why don't I see others' goodness? Because any good quality, I know how much labor it requires for a person to develop that quality. And that is unique for that person. The others don't have. Through my endeavor, all the weaknesses by default we all have. But all the goodness is by design. I have designed it myself. No one can relate to it. So in this life, know it for certain that when you lose your reputation, now you will find for all wrong reasons, people are blaming on you, throwing mud on you. And that will make your life more horrible because they all relate to the weaknesses. They can never relate to the good quality. So that's why that will really make your life horrible. Bhayad ranad uparatang mansyante twang maharatha yeshang chatvang bahumata bhutva yasyasi laghavam. All will speak ill of you. Avachya vadangscha, that's 36. There's the same idea. Avachya vadangscha bahum vadishyanti tavahita nindantastava samarthyam tato dukkatarum nakim. There is no other dukkha. There's no other sorrow, no other dejection greater than that. When you find that all are speaking ill of you. So that's the idea with which he's going to conclude this section, where the idea of self is not there. Just take the work that if you lose the reputation, it is going to really demean you. You will find drained out. So in the 37th, we'll conclude this section by saying that hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim tasmat uttishta kaunteya yudhyaya kritanishchaya. That even if you die in a righteous war, you are going to, as per our belief in the transmigration, you are going to evolve because you have sacrificed your that selfishness, sacrificed your ego. That speaks of your evolution. And even if you win, you are going to rule the world. So in both the way it is win. Again, it is a win-win situation. In both the way you win. So why are you so dejected? Get up and take part in the battle. So with this section will be over, where just for our mundane reasons, God is taking from that perspective, from this perspective also, that running away from this war, forsaking this war, is of no avail. So next, the real Gita, where the idea of the self is brought into the picture, from the real, that's the, you can say, the inception of the Gita, the beginning of the Gita. From the 30th sloka of the second chapter, it will start. So the idea of the karma yoga, which is related to the idea of the self, that will start from the 30th sloka, which we will again take up in the next class. With this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar. Yeah, please.